Okay, so in this video we're going to look at some other types of supply-side policies. So what we've got is sort of two different types of supply-side policies. These are supply-side policies that are directly related to the budget, so about increasing government expenditure or reducing revenue or other way around, but they relate to revenue and expenditure. There are also some examples of supply-side policies that are not directly related to the budget. So in this video we're going to look at some other things that the government has done, not just really manipulating their taxes and revenue, to try and, taxes and expenditure that they're trying to use to try and boost supply. And most of these relate to trying to solve some of these issues that were occurring 30 years ago, related to high inflation in Australia, weak growth and high unemployment rates, and lots of barriers to trade, which is limiting our ability to be productive. So we're just going to take you through a range of supply-side initiatives that can be used to boost a country's aggregate supply. So these are all examples of things that we did. Taxation reform, so change the way that we implement taxes. Trade liberalisation, which is about free trade and promoting competition within businesses. Deregulating inefficient markets, so what it means by that is rather than them being run by the government, so like the government runs Telstra or Qantas, we open them up to more competition and therefore they have to be more productive. Another example is the banking sector, where the Commonwealth Bank was the only way you could bank. You increase competition and introduce other banks with the idea that there's more competition in the market, so they work harder and more productively. Education and training to increase the skills of our workforce. Changing unemployment benefits, so making it so people have more incentive to work and develop skills. And labour market reforms, which we're going to touch on first. So, first things first is labour market reforms. You'll also hear it referred to as labour market deregulation. Whenever you hear the word deregulation, regulation means government involvement, so deregulation means removing government restrictions from that industry. So basically like saying the government no longer gets involved or reduces their involvement. Now that can be in the setting of wages, that can be in terms of enforcing penalty rates, not allowing businesses to get rid of unproductive workers. Basically labour market reforms revolve around getting rid of government intervention and opening it up for wages to be purely based on demand and supply, and a lot more flexible as well. So labour market deregulation, removing government involvement in the setting of wages and conditions, and allowing for more flexibility between employees and employers. The main form of labour market reform is this process called enterprise bargaining agreements. So what those mean is they're agreements between the employee and the employer, where rather than the government setting pay and conditions, they do that at a workplace level. So what I mean by that is that employees, so people working for a business, will sit down with the employers and work out how they're going to pay them, and those pay might be, some of it may be based on productivity, might be based on the profits of the company, but a lot of the pay and conditions will be based on what they sit down and work out at a micro level within the firm itself. They're on a firm-by-firm basis, and the idea of these agreements is rather than the government setting wages and conditions, is that pay rises are closely linked to workers' efficiency and performance, with the idea that people will work harder if their wages are tied more to their own individual performance, or at least the performance of the company. So some examples of labour market reforms: pay for performance, where people get paid based on how hard they work. They're often on individual contracts. So that's something that Howard tried to get in, which wasn't overly successful, where people would all be on their own individual contracts. Problem with that is often low-income earners got exploited because they didn't have enough power in those agreements. Removal of unfair dismissal laws. So what I mean by that is it's easier to sack workers that are being unproductive. You don't have to go through a long, lengthy process which can take up to 6 months to get rid of employees. The idea is that you can get rid of them quickly, which does two things for productivity. One, you can get rid of the less skilled or the less hard-working workers straight away. And two, it also provides an incentive for other workers knowing that they can be sacked to work harder more consistently as well. Scrapping penalty rates, so rather than the government saying that you need to get paid double time on a Sunday, that they scrap that so that they can save businesses money on the weekends. The idea of all of these labour market reforms, including enterprise bargaining, where wages and conditions are set between employee and employer, is to lower production costs, increase profitability, and reduce the incidence of uncompetitive businesses having to close down because they're not competitive. So they're all raised around lowering prices and boosting productivity so that jobs will stay in Australia, and by boosting out our supply potential. So some of the things that these reforms did, it led to more exports. Because we were more productive, our prices went down and people wanted to buy our exports. More jobs. Interest rates could stay low because there was less demand pressures in the economy, so there was less inflation. Increased effort because people are getting paid for performance, and removal of rules and regulations. So there was a lot less rules and regulations regarding how businesses could operate. Another policy they've done is reforming the tax system. So the problem with income and company tax cuts, as well as tariffs, is they can have a negative impact on supply. So what the government has done in the last 20 to 30 years is consistently lowered income and company taxes. The benefit of lowering income taxes is not only do they boost demand, but they also encourage people to be engaged in the labour force. So the idea is that more people join the labour force, which increases competition for jobs, and this helps to reduce wage pressures for firms. They have more choice in terms of who they hire, because more people are actively part of the workforce, and also encourages businesses to be more productive because there's more competition for jobs as well. There's more financial incentive for working hard. Lower company tax rates is another way. So lower income taxes help to boost supply. Lower company tax rates encourage firms to invest. So when they're paying less tax on their profits and they get to keep more of their profits, they're more likely to buy new investment and new machinery and new equipment, which helps to boost their productivity. So as you can see here, income taxes in Australia have gone down significantly since the 80s. So you can see the top marginal tax bracket used to be 60 cents. It's down to 45 cents per dollar, which is designed to make people pay less tax and therefore encourage them to join the workforce. I'll talk about the other policies in the next video.